Today, for the very first time, I get to listen to the brand new Matchbox 20 album. This is Where the Light Goes.
We don't let go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another album review / reaction here on my channel. I am so pumped about new Matchbox 20. This album totally snuck up on me. I had no clue it was even happening until a couple of weeks ago. When I found out about it, I was so excited. But before we get into talking about Matchbox 20, though, I have a couple things I want to say. First thing is, if you're not familiar with my channel, and even if you are familiar with my channel and you've been, or you're a subscriber, you've been watching my Metallica videos, you've been watching my Depeche Mode reaction from earlier this year, you've been watching all the videos I've been uploading. First of all, thank you for being here if you are one of those people that's been following along. But if you're new, or if you're familiar with my channel, this video might be incredibly different. So I've been having trouble recently with uploading full album reactions. I just did my Sleep Token reaction last week, and I was very surprised that the band or the copyright settings were such that I wasn't able to use the audio from the album in my Sleep Token video. And so I had to upload that video with my entire reaction, the entire video, the entire album in one video, with no music in it. Well, someone commented to me, and I've been seeing this kind of a little bit maybe over the last couple months here on YouTube, but I guess it's a little bit easier to get things posted and include the audio in it if you're not using the entire album. And I had a comment on my Sleep Token video telling me that I should cut it apart and upload each song reaction separately. Well, I wasn't thinking like that when I recorded the video, and I don't want to just flood my channel with all sorts of, reactions for each song. That'd be 12 new videos on my channel. They'd be shorter videos, and that'd be fine. I know no one probably really cares, but I just don't want my channel to be flooded with all these smaller, short videos that I didn't plan out, at least. I'm all for a nice, short video, though if you're familiar with my channel, very few of my videos are ever short. But, I'm okay with short videos when I plan them out and everything. So what I'm going to do with this Matchbox 20 reaction is I'm going to split it into 3 parts. So we're going to listen to the first 4 songs, and then I'm going to basically wrap up the video and then start a new video where we're going to listen to the second set of 4 songs. So tracks 5, 6, 7, 8, and then I'm going to wrap up that video. We're going to start a new video, and we're going to listen to the final 4 songs on the album. I'm pretty sure that there's 12 tracks on this album. So we're going to do 4, 4, and 4. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to record this video with that in mind. And then when I get ready to render this video down, I'll render just the first part. And if I can upload it with the music, which I have to say right off the bat, Matchbox 20 is an enormous artist, a huge, very popular artist. And so I don't know if I'm going to be able to use any of their audio in my videos at all, but this is the way I'm going to try to do it. So if I go through this process and I try to upload the first video and I still can't use the audio, what I probably will do is just combine all 3 videos together into one video like I normally have on my channel. Usually on my channel, I listen to entire albums, have my whole 2-hour-long videos, hour and a half, 2-hour-long videos on my channel, listening to an entire album. So if I can't figure out a way to chunk it up that makes sense with the way I'm going to record this video, I'm going to edit it in such a way that it'll all be in one video. I think that that's just easier. People can use the timestamps. That's my plan. I don't know if I explained it very well. Just know that I'll try to make this video as good as I can. I'll try to, put as much as I can into it, including the audio from the album itself. But if I can't, I'll probably make this just one big giant video. I'll edit out all my intros and outros and things like that for the second and third video. We'll just see kind of what happens here. But that's my plan with this. So I've never tried this before. Please bear with me as I kind of figure out a way to do this. But yeah, so that's my plan. So just know that that's going to happen. Regardless if I have 1 video or 3 videos, in the description of the video, I will include timestamps to all the different sections, regardless of what's in each video. So you'll be able to very clearly, hopefully, skip around the videos and listen to anything you want to. If you just want to listen to my reaction to one song off this album, feel free to skip to whichever video has that song in it, or if it all becomes one video again. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I know this is a lot of blah, blah, blah at the beginning of the video here, but I want to try to at least sort of explain what's going to be going on here. This is something brand new for me to try, and we'll see what happens. Anyway, So there will be, in the description, there will be timestamps. There will be links to listen to the album, maybe buy the album. We'll see. I checked earlier today, and this album is available at Target, which is pretty near my house. It's available at basically every Target. I was actually at Walmart, the closest Walmart to me, earlier today, and they did not have any copies of it, which I was a little bit bummed about. I was hoping I was going to be able to get the CD today, but they had no vinyl and no CD there. And so maybe in the coming weeks, they'll get it. That's how they did it with the new Metallica album, 72 Seasons. They didn't have it the day that it came out that week, but within 2 weeks or so, they had 5 or 6 copies. And I'm just talking at a smaller Walmart in Fremont, Nebraska, near where I live. So, but no Matchbox 20, as it were. So one last thing I want to mention before we get into talking about Matchbox 20 is just real quick that I am going to talk, if I do end up splitting this video into 3 videos, which I know I keep going on and on about this, at the beginning of this video that you're watching right now, the very first video is where I'm going to do my sort of talking about Matchbox 20, how I feel about them as a band, how I feel about Rob Thomas and his vocals and everything, and just go through their catalog very briefly. So that's what I'm going to do at the beginning of this video. Then we'll listen to, like I said, the first 4 songs on the album. And then if I end up splitting this into 3 videos, the second 4 songs, and then the third and final set of 4 songs from the album will be in their own videos. We'll just kind of have to see what happens. So now I just want to say real quick that I'm recording this now after I'm done listening to the entire album. It was phenomenal. But I wanted to insert this here that if I do end up splitting this into 3 parts, at the end of the third part, when I'm done listening to the album as a whole, I will sort of talk about the album as a whole as well, sort of give my review or my overall thoughts. So if you want to skip all of this, and I do have 3 videos uploaded, just go to the end of the third video. I'll have it labeled on the timeline, and you can check out my thoughts of the album overall. Again, spoiler alert, it was fantastic. I absolutely love it. I highly recommend listening along with me, though, because it's great. But if I make this one long video, you can just skip to the end of this video to see all of those thoughts. So, yeah, just wanted to insert this right here. So enough of all that stuff. Let's get into talking about Matchbox 20 a little bit here before I actually get into listening to the album. So Matchbox 20 is a very special band to me, though they are very special to me in a completely different way than it looks like or seems like most people who like Matchbox 20, why they're special for them. So for me, the first Matchbox 20 song I heard was probably Bent on the radio when I was in high school. Might have even been when I was in junior high at the time when that album came out, because when did that album come out? Mad Season came out when? In 2000. So that would have been when I was either a freshman in high school or a 8th grader, I believe. So that was probably the first song I heard. And then other than Bent, what was the other song off here? Oh, of course, If You're Gone. I believe Crutch was also sort of another single. So those are sort of 3 songs I heard. I just heard them on the radio. I enjoyed them, but I didn't really think about them too much. And it wasn't until I was actually a junior in high school, which I think would have been 2004 or 2003, depending on the time of the year when these albums were released. 2002 is when More Than You Think You Are was released. When I was at prom, actually, in my high school, which is a very, very, very small, tiny high school, after prom, the prom dance was over, we had sort of post-prom was what we called it, I believe, and all the people who attended prom, which my high school was so small, all freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors were all able to go to prom, so we had, the whole high school had, I would say, maybe 70 kids in it or so, maybe less than that even. So, everyone was invited to prom as long as you were in high school. But after prom was over, we had post-prom where everyone got to stay, and you got to basically play some games and stuff that were mostly set up and run by the parents, just like sort of carnival games and things, to win points. And then we had a huge auction where you could purchase things with the points that you got for playing the games and stuff. So anyway, the whole reason I say that is my first Matchbox 20 CD that I acquired was this one, More Than You Think You Are, and I got it at my post-prom when I was a junior, which again would have been 2004, I believe. And so I got this album, listened to it, blew my mind. It has since then become one of my all-time favorite albums, which is why whenever I see a copy of this album anywhere, I just go ahead and purchase it, to the point where I have 4 copies now that I can give away to anybody that I want to. If someone comes over, I can just throw them a Matchbox 20 CD. I've even got several copies in some of these. Look, here's a CD that I bought that had 2 CDs in it of the exact same thing, both Matchbox 20 More Than You Think You Are. So I absolutely adore this album. So after I fell in love with this album, I went back and I started to look into Matchbox 20 a little bit more, and I got Mad Season, and I enjoyed this album, but it didn't really blow me away the way that, this album did. And then later on, I purchased Yourself or Someone Like You, and boy, let me tell you, I do not care for this album at all. And it absolutely astonishes me that when most people, at least that I'm aware of, when people think of and talk positively about Matchbox 20, this is the album that they are talking about. I do not get it at all. I think this album is incredibly boring and uninspired and doesn't sound as good fidelity-wise. And it just is absolutely crazy to me that this is what a lot of people think of when they think of the Matchbox 20, the band. It's kind of the same thing with Wallflowers, right? People think of One Headlight, and Wallflowers had so many great albums after their first album, which I do think is great, but I like their later albums much more so than their earlier stuff. And that One Headlight wasn't even from their first album. But anyway, so Matchbox 20, I do not care for this. This album is a lot more grungy. It feels very 90s, which absolutely makes sense because it was released in 1996. And I know for a lot of people this is sort of a seminal 90s album, but not for me. I didn't get into this until way later. I was listening in the 90s. I was probably still listening to a lot of music that was influenced from my parents, which would basically be golden oldies from the 50s and the 60s. And I was starting to get into heavier music as well in the mid to late 90s when I started to get into like Rob Zombie and White Zombie and Power Man 5000 and things like that. And then that basically continued, and I still love metal music and all that heavy stuff to this day. But then eventually we come to the release of North, 11 years ago now, 2012, absolutely insane. And the same year they released this album was the same year that the Wallflowers released their album. What was that album called? It was White, and it had the guy from the Cars, I think, sang a song with them on it. But I was really disappointed with that album by the Wallflowers, but I loved North. I'm one of the rare people, at least as far as I know, I think that Matchbox 20's albums... I'm one of those rare people that thinks that Matchbox 20's albums have gotten better as they go along. Production-wise, songwriting-wise, performance-wise, working in the studio, every aspect. Now, I will say it's a little tough for me to say that I think North is a better album overall than More Than You Think You Are. However, if you are familiar with my channel at all, you know that I absolutely cannot stand fade-outs, which is why we have the fade-out board here on my channel. And for every song that has a fade-out ending, which I think is always lazy and terrible bad songwriting and can sometimes, in some cases, actually ruin an entire song or even an album for me, we'll mark it down as we go through here. But those of you who are big Matchbox 20 fans will probably be familiar with the fact that several songs, more than 3, for sure 3, but maybe even 4, songs on More Than You Think You Are fade out, and it is bad fades. It's not okay, the song is basically over and then we'll just repeat some stuff and fade the song out. No. Unwell fades out. I think Hand Me Down fades out. Which other one does? I'm not sure for sure. I think there's 4 songs that actually fade out on More Than You Think You Are, and that absolutely tears at my soul. So, tiny little secret here, for my channel here the last year or so, and even actually not even outside of the confines of my channel, I have been trying to go through and organize and make a list of my top 20 favorite albums of all time, or that I've experienced thus far. And so what I've basically been doing is sitting and listening all the way through from front to back through any album that I think could possibly be on that list. And one of the albums that I sat and listened to all the way through was More Than You Think You Are, because I have always loved this album, and I think that it's a really special album, and it definitely deserves a lot of love, definitely more love than it gets. So I sat and I listened to this album, and I think that it's absolutely phenomenal. This album is a perfect example of what rock music was, sort of pop rock music was, alternative rock, whatever you want to call it, was when this was released in the early 2000s, 2002. The production is phenomenal, but there's also a feeling of like bands that could get together and actually play. But there was also this like poppiness to it as well. Rob Thomas's vocals, obviously, like running through all of these albums, just absolutely phenomenal. The catchy hooks, the great instrumentation, the guitar solos on this album in particular, the strings, even the electronic elements, the keyboards, everything was phenomenal. The only thing that holds this album back for me from being in my top 20, which I can say officially that I believe it is not, the only thing that holds it back is my absolute hatred and disappointment of songs that fade out. There's too many songs that fade out on this album, and there's songs that I absolutely love. I think that Unwell is one of the best sort of like pop songs, if you want to think of it as that. I think Unwell is one of the best, maybe one of the greatest songs ever written, if it wasn't for that fade out. And I think that my favorite song on this album is Hand Me Down. I absolutely love when the piano kicks in, the hi-hat beat that then turns into the ride later on during the choruses, the low piano notes, the slowness of the song, the deep bass. I absolutely love that song, Hand Me Down. And if you haven't heard this album in a while and you don't particularly remember that song because it wasn't one of their singles, I highly recommend you go check it out, listen to it. It's absolutely fantastic. But anyway, so that's my long way of telling you that I think that I love this album so much. It's possibly was going to be in one of the slots in my top 20 favorite albums of all time, but it just doesn't make it there. So then when I started thinking about this album being in my top 20, there's definitely a chance. I don't think that some of the their hit songs off North are as good as their hit songs off of their two previous albums. I include even Bent and If You're Gone, I think. Yeah, I always forget about that one, even though that was their bigger song, I think. But I absolutely like She's So Mean on here. Put Your Hands Up is kind of a silly song, but I really like it. There's Sleeping at the Wheel is a great ballad on here. English Town is really nice. My favorite song on here, though, is actually the song called Like Sugar. I love how that one kicks in. It's sort of the same things I was mentioning with Hand Me Down a second ago. I really like the piano melody that comes in, the sort of like keyboardy part. I like the more sort of like a groovy feel to it. It's a little bit slower. Almost has kind of like a bit of like a slower hip-hoppy or trip-hop vibe to it, a little bit maybe. But I really like it. Love the melody, love background vocals in it. But there isn't a weak song on this album at all, in my opinion. I do not think that Matchbox 20 has written a weak song since there's a couple songs on Mad Season that I don't care for. So in my opinion, Matchbox 20 has not released a sort of mediocre song in the last 23 years. However, we know that Matchbox 20 has only released these two albums, plus, of course, the sort of EP or whatever you want to call it for Exile in the Mainstream, which I really do like the two sort of singles that they released for that. I really love How Far We've Come. I think that's a fantastic song. But yeah, so that's sort of my long way of going through that. I will just point out real quick, I do also have, I think, all of Rob Thomas's solo albums. His most recent one, Chip Tooth Smile. I enjoy this album, but I didn't like it as much as I wanted to. I think that there's too many ballads on here, actually. There's not enough sort of poppy get up and go songs. There's too many ballads, though I really like the production on here. And then his other three solo albums, I don't really have these albums memorized as much as their Matchbox 20 stuff itself, but I have The Great Unknown, the Special Target edition that has 15 tracks on it, 14 tracks on here, 12 on here. This is his first one, I believe, Something to Be, and then Cradle Song, unless I got those two mixed up in order, but it doesn't matter. We're not here to talk about the solo albums. One last thing I want to say before we get into this. I know I'm being a little bit scatterbrained here, but one last thing I want to say before we get into listening to the new album is that in my opinion, and if you're new to this channel, you might not know this, but I listen to all genres of music, so much different styles of music. I have a CD collection that is over 3,000 CDs strong. I have all sorts of vinyl. I have all sorts of audio gear. I myself have worked at a recording studio for several years, professional recording studio. I worked on music that's my own music. I've worked on other bands' music. I've mixed albums. I've mastered albums. I've made radio commercials. I've done all sorts of interesting things. Nothing that's famous or anything that anybody would know. But I've done a lot of things, listened to a lot of music, and, you know, my opinion is just the opinion of one person. But in my opinion, I think that Rob Thomas might have one of the greatest singing voices of all time. I absolutely adore Rob Thomas's voice. I think it is absolutely perfect. And I don't know if I've ever heard him sing something that I didn't like the way his voice sounded when he was singing it, if that makes sense. I think that possibly, in my opinion, Nat King Cole might be the greatest singer of all time. I think that his voice was so amazing. His performance was so amazing. He was also one of the great piano players as well. He did all sorts of crazy stuff. And I'm not a big jazz guy or anything, but I know who Nat King Cole is, and I know a lot of his music, and it's fantastic. But if I've had conversations in the past with some of my music friends, and sometimes it's come up who's your favorite singers, and I always say Nat King Cole first, and then I say Rob Thomas second, and then I actually say what's her name, the lady Maria, I believe, with a J, from the band The Sounds. I absolutely love her voice as well, though that's sort of more of a personal thing rather than objectively being fantastic, though I think she is. But I think that Rob Thomas is objectively a fantastic singer. I think that he is one of the great singers of all time. Definitely underappreciated. You know, in my opinion, he is one of the great vocalists of all time. I love his voice. And so I'm so excited that we get to hear some new Matchbox 20 today. Now, I will also say I definitely like the Matchbox 20 stuff in their catalog a lot more than Rob Thomas's solo stuff. I enjoy some of his solo stuff. I enjoy, a lot of it actually, quite a bit. But there's something about the writing of Matchbox 20. So it's not just his voice that I love. I love the writing of Matchbox 20. I like the way that they sound like a band, which I know might be kind of ridiculous. But when you listen to something like other bands that I really like, for example, like One Republic or Imagine Dragons, right? I feel like you shouldn't really talk about them in the same regard as Matchbox 20, because One Republic, especially their last few albums, you can listen to the album, and yes, they do have a drummer, a guitar player, a bass player, and a vocalist in their band, and the keyboard player, maybe, if it's one of those guys plays keyboard. But when you listen to their albums, you really don't, you don't hear very much, if any, guitar at all. The bass is probably all synth bass program stuff, or just sub bass frequency stuff. And the drums are all programmed electronic drums. Now, I'm not saying that the music's not being performed by people or anything like that, but when you listen to a One Republic song, which again, I love One Republic, if you listen to a One Republic song, it doesn't really sound like a band performing. And the same thing can be said for Imagine Dragons. I really enjoy Imagine Dragons. I'm not one of those people that just craps on Imagine Dragons for no reason. I really enjoy their music. I think they're kind of cool dudes just from the little bit that I know about them. And I think that their early work is really, really, really cool. And their first few full-length albums are really special albums, and I can't believe they took the risks that they did. They do sound like a band a little bit on some of their earlier albums, but their last 2-3 albums, it's basically just an electronic drum beat and the singer singing. So I wouldn't really call that sounding like a band. But Matchbox 20, even on North, when they used a lot more electronic elements, they do use electronic drums. They do use programmed synth bass. Some of the songs probably don't have very much guitar, but they do have acoustic ballads. They do have drums that sound like real drums that were probably actually recorded in a studio and then maybe, sampled and changed and stuff after the fact. But they do have those real band elements to all of their albums. And so that's one of the things that I think separates them from artists that are like, or bands, whatever you want to call it, that are like truly like mainstream, huge popularity level. Now, Matchbox 20 hasn't released an album for 11 years, so maybe this album will come out and they won't even be like, they won't make much of a splash. I'm sure that they will. But, the Wallflowers released an album last year, and I reacted to it on my channel here, and that video I think has less than 50 views on it. So people weren't clamoring for the Wallflowers as much. I hope that this Matchbox 20 album, I hope they get radio play. I hope they get to, I hope they chart. I hope they do all that stuff that used to be really important things in the music industry. And, being on the Billboard Top 100, selling, CDs or albums or whatever is not necessarily a very good barometer for what's the most popular thing in the world anymore today, music-wise. But I hope that they make all of those things. I hope that they reach their goals, and I hope they achieve success here. But I also hope, and I should also mention this, I have not heard a second of this album at all. Not a teeny tiny second at all. I hope that this album still sounds like a band. I hope that this album sounds like the Matchbox 20 that we're all familiar with the fantastic songwriting. One of the things I love that Matchbox 20 has done on all of their albums, but specifically every album other than their first one, they have a lot of what I refer to on my channel here as like the special sprinkles that they put on top of the songs, right? If you take away the guitar, bass, drums, vocals, keyboards from the song, what's just left? What are the things in each song that are the individual unique elements that are put in each song to make the songs feel different from one another, yet they can still feel like a cohesive album? Matchbox 20 always does a fantastic job of having such cool, unique, interesting little elements in their songs, whether it's like a little electronic thing or a guitar lick or just a little melodic melody type thing in the vocals that's like sort of different and unique, or some really clever way to use background vocals, or even in some of their songs, harmony vocals can be a really cool thing that they add in a slightly different way than most bands would do it, and it can make each song feel special. And so I'm really hoping that this new album, we get all of those things. We get those special sprinkles. We get the really great songwriting. We get fantastic vocals and melodies and harmonies from Rob. And that we get a nice flow of songs that don't any of them fade out. I'm really hoping that none of them fade out, though I am prepared. My heart is prepared to be very disappointed when we do inevitably, probably, hopefully not, get some fade outs on this album. So, half hour I've been talking here. Some of that stuff can get cut, but let's get into the music. So, as I said, I just want to make sure, I want to reiterate again here. I'm going to go through and film this reaction the way I sort of normally would, but I'm going to do a little bit of a break and a re-intro after each set of 4 songs so that I can potentially split these videos up into 3 parts, and maybe I'll be able to use the audio then. However, if I cannot do that, or if I do that and I upload the first part and I still get a copyright, the video still gets blocked for copyright, because the video is going to get a copyright strike, I believe, regardless. Or not a copyright strike, sorry, a copyright claim regardless. But if I upload the video with the music in it and it's allowed to stay up, then I will do part 2 and part 3 the exact same way. However, if I upload part 1 and it still gets blocked in every country because they have their settings, their copyright settings such that they don't want people using their music at all in their videos, which I totally understand, by the way. If that's the case, I am going to probably edit this video into just one long video. So know that I will clearly always have labeled on screen what each song is we're listening to. And again, you can always check the timestamps in the description of each of the videos, whether it's one or all 3 videos, to see what each part is and what you're actually listening to. If you have to like link up your own copy of each song with me, hopefully that doesn't happen. That's the whole reason for chopping the video up, like I'm going to probably do. But, we'll just have to see what happens. So, before we get into the album, I have one more thing I have to do. Look right here on my table, and I'll be right back with you in a second. So, for this video, I have one of the last cans, actually, until I can hopefully get a new case, of the Mountain Dew Summer Freeze, the awesome blue Mountain Dew that Mountain Dew has released for the summer. I just want to say, I had to get up and walk across the room to get this. I feel like I was just sort of like speaking 1,000 words a minute there, trying to rush through this intro of this video because I'm a little bit worried about cutting it up. I don't know exactly how it's going to work. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. So let's just take a second. Deep breath to sort of mentally prepare, okay? Disregarding everything I just said, I am so excited to listen to new Matchbox 20. Every year, one of the main reasons I listen to new music in each year is so that I can get my top 12 list ready for the end of the year that I always do here on my channel. I seriously think, with everything great that's already come out and everything that I know will come out yet this year, I seriously think that if this album is as good as North and More Than You Think You Are, I seriously think that this album could be my #1 album of the year. For sure, it could easily be on my list, but I honestly think that I like those two albums enough that even in a really great year, Matchbox 20, I know, can release an album that could potentially be my #1 album of the year. So, if nothing else, that should tell you how excited I am to listen to this and how much my expectations are set. I have high expectations for this. So, but I also understand this is pop music. It's pop rock. I also know that music nowadays is not necessarily being made for me anymore. Songs are very short. You know, I like a song that's definitely longer than 3 minutes. So we'll just see if they trend towards modern trends, if they try to stick with what they've been doing. They're much older, mature guys now. They're 11 years older than when they made North. So, okay, let's do this. We're going to listen to the first 4 tracks here. Friends, Wild Dogs, Rebels, and One Hit Love. And then I'll take a little break. But my plan is to not stop between songs. That's what I normally do when I'm listening to a full album. So we're going to listen to these first 4 songs here. I'm going to be talking. Try not to get too mad at me. I also want to say one last thing. On my channel, I tend to focus more on production things, songwriting things, song structuring, stuff like that. How things were recorded. Why is this specific sound in this song? How does it work with the other sounds that are happening within the song? Things like that. I don't tend to listen to or break down lyrics that much. I listen to them, but I don't focus on the lyrics too much. So don't expect me to be breaking down the lyrics very much. All right, Matchbox 20. The album Where the Light Goes. Track 1, Friends. 2023. Starting now. Okay. Some gangy vocals sort of to start everything out. Like cheering almost. Brass. That sounds like some brass. Bass line in there. It sounds like a bass guitar. Some drums, obviously. Ooh. His vocals are pretty low in the mix. Very interesting. The mix is very strange, the frequencies I'm hearing. Whoa. He's singing in a much higher register than I normally have heard Rob do. Interesting. The album's very dynamic. There are things that are louder, I feel, than they needed to be, and things that were quieter than they needed to be. So it's interesting. This sounds pretty good, though. Now, this song is 4 minutes and 46 seconds. That's pretty long for an intro song. Pretty cool. I like the sort of shouty female backing vocals. I also want to say that when I did first hear North, and actually all the Matchbox 20 albums, it took me a few listens to really get into them and appreciate them. But North in particular, I didn't like it as much the first few times I listened to it, and the more I've listened to it, the more I've really grown to appreciate it. And I feel like it's great songwriting. And I think that's maybe something it takes a few listens to appreciate really good songwriting. Generally, I tend to focus some more on things that are like instantly gratifying when I listen to it, something that sounds really cool. But Matchbox 20 is not always a band that's not necessarily their sweet spot. Very dynamic. These big stabs, they're very big. The bass is very big as well, but the bass almost sounds a little woofy. But this is almost nice here, the dynamics here. Very nice, sort of slow beat here. Feels very sort of celebratory. This actually reminds me a little bit of, I could see AWOL Nation doing something like this, or One Republic, for sure. Yes, guitar solo, baby. We have a very distinct strum to guitar off to one side, be off to the right. Sounds like there's a tambourine kind of off to one side as well. Yeah, that's what this... The way he's singing his register of vocals, it is very One Republic-y. That's interesting. Piano, sounds great. Ooh. Do I count this as a fade out? Yeah. I think this is a fade out. I would count that as a fade out. Wait. I'm going to not count that one. You know, you could hear them. Okay. Okay, this sounds way... This is from a whole completely different stratosphere, this song. That first song was weird. This is way more what I expected in terms of the level of his vocals, the level of the drums, what I'm hearing. I love that bubbly sort of sound. Very cool. Synth. Actually, that could be a guitar part with some delays on it. Yes. 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 This is Matchbox 20. The piano is very big and wide. Strummed acoustic guitar here. That background for that. Very cool. I don't know that much about the actual guys in the band, so make sure you let me know, but I do know one of the other guys in the band, or maybe multiple guys in the band, do sort of background vocals and stuff. I really love that when there's another member of the band that can do some background vocals, some shout vocals, some additional vocals. And I think even on North, one of the songs is the lead vocal is done by one of the other members of the band. The guitar player, I think. But I love bands that are able to do that. It's one of my favorite things about Modest Mouse as well. Their background vocalist, for the guy that plays the, I believe it's the bass player that does some of the shout vocals. Love his voice. Yes. He is definitely singing higher. It's very interesting. Even much higher than he even did on his most recent solo album. Which, that's way at the bottom here. I think think that was 2018, I want to say, maybe 2019. Love the strummed acoustic guitar. All the background vocals are great. The gang vocals, harmony vocals. I will say just starkly different sounding, though, sonically from the first track, so very different. Oh, no. Oh, no, this is not good. That's a really bad fade out. That's really bad. Ugh. That's a big bummer. Okay, track 3. Rebels. Okay, just started kind of interestingly and different there. Ooh. Okay, it sounds much more similar to the second song than the first one in terms of the sonic space. Much higher resolution. That first track was very loose. Ooh. Interesting, like a feeling of building here. Interesting. Oh, cool. That was almost sort of like a sample sound of. It sounded like a sample of space or of a space air or something like that. But it could have also been some sort of like a crazy sort of like reverb effect. Some really nice sort of airy sound. Kick sounds really good here. Bass sounds phenomenal. I assume this is the chorus, and it's got a really interesting build. Right? It's not necessarily a feeling of moving forward, momentum, it's a feeling of building. Okay. Some nice high acoustic guitar in there. I love this. Interesting reverb there, very roomy sounding. I'm so surprised. The mix is very... It still is dynamic, but not as much as that first track. You can really place every instrument on the stereo spectrum. It's very wide. Usually that's a sign of something that was done during mastering to spread everything out a little bit. In terms of the extreme sides. Sort of like gangy, shouty vocals here. Very nice. Nice. Is this song gonna fade out? Love that. I love the piano always in the background of stuff too. It really thickens everything. All right, so that was track 3. Loved that one. Very different with the building feeling during the chorus. Okay, this is One Hit Love.
Don't wanna be your problem.
Very dry vocals.
Don't wanna be your pain. Don't wanna hold your sorrow all in my hands. Don't wanna sell you something
Piano obviously
I
sounds
can
fantastic.
never be. I know it feels like that. 'Cause it's always dying hearts, broken bones, shooting stars with nowhere to go. Like a one-hit love. A one-hit love.
Good, awesome lyrics there.
Hope and dreams, what is lost are meant to be. Maybe we're just moments moving sideways. Maybe we're just made to be alone.
Gosh, his vocals are so surprising to me.
We don't know. Are we getting lost in the silence?
Sometimes it doesn't even sound like him.
Maybe one hit love is all we know. And we won't let go. We don't stop
Interesting.
trying.
Interesting.
We don't
This is very One Republic.
stop. We were never really young. Now
Okay.
we're so much older.
Now it's a drum
than we
beat, but
thought we'd be.
electric guitar in there, very nice.
Same old place, and we're never gonna leave. And
Very
if we
dynamic with the way they're
don't
playing,
look
very
down,
human feeling.
then we might not
Really like that.
feel it.
Very subtle.
And we're never gonna change.
Accenting specific notes
We're all just dying
in the rhythm.
hearts and broken dreams. All we lost are in between.
So this is sort of
Maybe we're just moments moving
a ballad, I guess. You know, the first minute and a half, there was no drums really, just basically a piano and singing.
We don't know. Are we getting lost in the silence? Maybe one hit love is all
That-
we know. 'Cause we won't let go.
Yeah. Strummed acoustic guitar.
And we won't
I think maybe Rob plays a strummed acoustic guitar when they're performing. I don't know.
we're all just dying hearts.
Ooh, that piano.
Dreams. All we
Strings,
lost are
probably
in
synth strings.
between.
Maybe not.
Maybe we're just
Oh,
moments
awesome.
moving sideways. Maybe we're just made to be alone.
This is great.
We don't know. Are we getting lost in the silence? Maybe one hit love is all we know. We don't let go.
Oh, yeah. Ooh. Sounds like some female backing vocals in there. I love that.
What we're feeling, where we started, what we're saying with our heart.
I say it so often on my channel. Background vocals are one of the least appreciated elements of all music, and I absolutely think they are essential for a great album.
I'll be with you all the way down, 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 down.
And background vocals are harmony vocals, gang vocals, shout vocals, stuff like that. Oh, awesome. Okay, so that was the first 4 tracks plus my long intro. Again, this is essentially one long video that I am going to split into 3 parts. So I'm gonna end the first part now. So thank you very much for watching. Check out all the other stuff on my channel, especially the Metallica stuff. It's been really popular. I'm really proud of those videos. Depeche Mode, all sorts of good things. If you like this kind of music, I do have older stuff like the Wallflowers from maybe 2 years ago, a year or 2 years ago, whenever their album came out, Exit Wounds. But I've also got Ellie Goulding from earlier this year. I've got all sorts of good stuff, even some bad stuff that really disappointed me, like the Heavy's new album that came out a couple of weeks ago that absolutely was terrible because there was no high frequency on it whatsoever. Got all that stuff. Check any of that stuff out. I click right now to part 2. I'll upload all 3 of these right at the same time. And again, this should be thought of as just one video. I'm just separating them for hopefully I'll be able to use the audio from the album in these videos if I separate them. We'll see. Maybe you'll never even see this because I'll just stitch everything together like I did it all in one go anyway. Who knows? Thank you very much for watching. Now go watch part 2.